Hi, welcome to Break a Bolt. Today on our N54 swapped E46 wagon build, we're going to try to take the engine off of the E90. Test the N54 engine on E46 bay for the first time. We stopped on the last episode after taking the exhaust and all the heat shields underneath it. So this time we're just going to jump straight into the drive shaft, disconnect it, and go from there. Okay, so we made some progress. First of all, I just wanted to clean up a little bit on the engine bay. I just want to take the AC compressor lines, one coming off of the firewall and the one going around the engine. They took them off. They basically torque 6 bolts too, and then you could just pull it off. Other than that, I did not do anything up front on the engine, so let me show what I did at the bottom. That's the drive shaft I took off. It's basically the bolt which goes in to connect the drive shaft. It's 18mm on both sides. Just put a ratchet on one side and I used the impact and took it off. To get the shifter out, shifter linkage end is like snug in here. What you have to do is use a flathead into this hole, like trying a flathead like this, and you just have to get it off these edges. So these two edges are what's holding on to the shifter end. I'll show you guys when I'm out of the car. So once you do that, right here there's a clip. You have to use a flathead, pull it out, and you'll be able to just remove the linkage from there. And there's one on this side, one on this side, like right around here, and there's one on the other side, same way. And then I took the transmission mount. There's basically 4 bolts to the chassis and 2 bolts holding on to the mounts. They're all 30mm, so it's pretty easy. Just make sure you just jack up the transmission before you do. I had to lower the transmission a little bit to get access to all the linkage up here, so it'll make it easier if you just take the bracket and lower the transmission slightly so you can access it easier. I had to drain the clutch line. Basically it's connected like this. You just use a small flathead and pull this clip down. It's one of those pull clips what you have on like the radiator and everything. You just pull the clip down and yeah, just take the line. It's gonna have some brake fluid on it, so make sure you have something underneath it. And then on the passenger side, the engine mounts are easier to take off from the bottom. It's basically 2 screws. They're supposed to be external Torx 12s. Yeah, that's about it. And let me show you guys the transmission linkage. What you're gonna see underneath when you go under the car is something like this. What you're gonna do is use a flathead where I showed you earlier on the chassis, and you push it down so that groove jumps off of this ledge, and this thing will pop out. And there are 3 linkages connecting to the transmission. First one you want to take off is this linkage. It's basically a push clip. You're going to use a flathead like around in here. You're going to just widen it up a bit by twisting and pulling it off. And then you just wiggle this out of the loop, I guess. And then you're going to have these 2 on both sides of the transmission. So it's the same deal. You're going to use a flathead, push it down, and pull it out. The only difference is you're going to basically pull this rod, like slide it out on both sides. Once you slide it out, this whole assembly comes loose, and then you just pull it down. It's pretty simple. but it's just hard to reach unless you lower the transmission a bit. Okay, so we're almost ready to pull the engine out. First and foremost, I disconnect all the tubes and hoses going to the water pump, just because I don't want anything to be getting stuck in between. So you make sure you unhook the heater cord, because the same hose connects to the overfill reservoir, or that can thing. So on the driver's side, what I noticed was if I try to pull the engine straight out, I might have an issue with the engine mount hitting the steering column. So what I started doing is, before I hooked up the engine, I loosened these bolts from the engine block itself. It's external Torx. I didn't have it, so I used one of those universal 14, I believe it's universal 14 millimeter socket, and I was able to crack these off. And then the bottom bolt for the engine mount is a 16 millimeter. So, and oh yeah, don't forget there's a ground cable connected to that mount. I had to use a 30 mil. So yeah, that's about it. As the previous engine, I used this loop to hook the engine on the firewall side, and I'm using a tow hook from E46 on the front. It fits perfectly, so I used that tow hook from the E46 up front. And yeah, so let me start taking the engine mount off completely, and then we'll start taking the engine out. So it's another day. Last time I took the engine off the E90 and I started messing around with the E46 and trying to put it in. So yeah, let's keep going. So we were to test the N54 engine on E46 bay for the first time. For that, to prepare, I lowered the subframe up front, because when I was trying to do with the subframe on, the oil pan keep hitting the gimbal right here. So I lowered the subframe, and I'm trying to reuse the same mounts from the E46. And one other thing I did was, I'm using the N54 motor mounts, and I had to grind off just a bit on the inside of the mount, so it allows me to, it'll allow the space for the gimbal to turn when you turn the steering wheel. So I just grinded off all this. And yeah, on the passenger side, I'm using the same mount as well, so let's hope it fits. N54 engine is sitting inside the E46 engine bay. I used the E46 engine mounts with the N54 gets its engine mount as well. So I'm using the E46 rubber boot, except using the N54 engine mount. Ran into a couple of issues using the existing mounting locations. I figured it's not going to be exactly the same since N54's engine mount sits a bit back, but yeah, I might have to make some custom mounts. So let me show you some of the problems I ran into. Alright, the first problem I ran into was the N54 is sitting about, give or take 4 fingers. 4 fingers higher from the front subframe, even though I'm using the existing mount and everything. So I might have to make a custom mount. I would like to push the engine about inch back. Seems like there's enough space. So yeah, so when I make the new custom mounts, I'll probably make it so it will shift back a little bit. I just had to make it higher so it would clear the gimbal, because the gimbal is currently hitting as well. The engine is slightly on the frame, so if I push about maybe a half an inch or an inch backwards, it should clear that out. One of the other issues I ran into was I had to take the charge pipe coming out of the turbos because it's hitting the railing. The front end should be fine. It's the one up in the back, because it's fitting here. The one up in the back, it's hitting on this rail, so I might have to push the rail back a bit or cut and make a space for it. I ran into then the transmission mount. So I just put the E90 transmission mount to market. I shouldn't have a problem, but I still had to make some custom mounts to fit a manual transmission for the E90. So we got the engine in for the first time, but we gotta do quite a bit of custom work to get it fitting properly, that I'm happy with it, because I would like to lower the center of gravity, and the way it's sitting, it may not clear the hood when you close it, so that's another problem. Yeah, food for thought. Alright guys, we're almost at the end of the day. So N54 is in the engine bay. It was a hassle getting in there. I ended up taking most of the stuff off the engine, because even though N52 and N54 has the same engine design, a similar design, not the same, a similar design as in the block, but where it differs is having the turbos, the exhaust side of it needs more space compared to the N52. Next time, hopefully, I'll jump into the E90 and start messing around with the interior. And yeah, we'll start getting to the wiring part and trying to figure all those stuff out, because at this point, I'm going to leave the engine as it is. I got to do some measuring and call a couple of my friends to figure out and make some custom mounts. I'd like to thank everyone who's been watching and subscribing, and thanks guys, I really appreciate it. Your support goes a long way. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do so. I'll throw it somewhere on here. I don't know. I could never get the position correct. Somewhere here. Yeah. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Comment, like, share. That would help me out a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Keep breaking bolts.